The CEO's son fired me in less time than it took to pour a cup of coffee. It's 2026, he said, leaning back in his chair like this was obvious. I need someone younger and cheaper. No greeting, no hesitation, no explanation of why I had been called into the room at 8:15 in the morning. Just that sentence, delivered calmly, as if 15 years of work could be erased by adjusting a budget line. My name is Granny. I was 51 years old, and until that moment, I had never been unemployed a single day of my adult life. I looked directly at him. Is this about performance? I asked. Or cost? He smiled. The kind people practice in business school. Performance can be replaced. Cost can't. The lawyer beside him kept her eyes on her tablet. No one interrupted. No one asked me to stay for questions. There was no human resources representative, no transition plan, no mention of the contracts I managed or the systems I signed off on every quarter. I waited a beat. Before you finalize this, I said evenly. You should confirm legal has reviewed the continuity clause in my contract. He didn't even turn to her. Legal already handled it. The lawyer's fingers stopped moving, then started again. I warned you, I said, standing. The price won't be what you think. That finally got a reaction. He laughed, not loudly. Just enough to let me know he thought I was posturing. Security opened the door before anyone else spoke. In the elevator, my phone vibrated. Access termination scheduled. End of day. Automated. Efficient. By the time I stepped outside, the humiliation hit not because I'd been fired, but because they never asked what I protected. They never asked what would stop working the moment I walked out. That's how I knew this was never a conversation. It was a calculation. The story you are about to hear is a fictional work created by the writing team at Her Revenge. It examines how institutional knowledge, experience, and accountability are often dismissed as too expensive until the systems built to protect organizations begin to fail. While the characters and events are imagined, the dynamics are drawn from real corporate environments. I didn't call a lawyer. I didn't argue. I didn't send another warning. I went home, opened the contract they were so sure had already been reviewed, and waited for the consequences to arrive on their own. What if the most important job in the company was the one nobody knew how to explain? By noon, my calendar was already empty. I was packing the last of my files when my phone buzzed. A text from Mark in Treasury. Are you still around? I stepped into the hallway and called him back. They locked my access. I said, What's wrong? There was a pause. We're trying to release the infrastructure note this afternoon. Compliance sign-off is flagged red. That's normal, I said. Who's listed as accountable? Another pause. Longer this time. You were... I leaned against the wall. Then it won't clear. You trained the team, he said carefully. Can't someone else know? I said, I trained them to escalate. I never trained them to replace me. He exhaled. So who signs now? No one, I said. That's how it's designed. Mark didn't argue. That told me more than any apology would have. 10 minutes later, my former director, Elaine, called. Her voice was tight, controlled. Legal says you handled continuity oversight, not approvals. They can call it whatever they want, I said. The system knows who's accountable. We just need a temporary workaround, she said. Something to keep things moving. There isn't one, I said. Movement without accountability is how firms collapse. She lowered her voice. They didn't realize how much ran through you. They never asked, I said. They asked what I cost. Silence. Then, quietly. The board is asking why nothing is clearing. Tell them the truth, I said. The truth doesn't move fast, but it holds. She didn't answer right away. When she did, her tone had changed. If this delays revenue, it won't delay revenue, I said. It will freeze it. After we hung up, another message came in. This one from legal. We're reviewing your contract for clarity. I didn't respond. My work had never been about producing numbers. It was about making sure the wrong ones never appeared. About knowing which approvals mattered and which were ceremonial. About building a structure that refused to operate when responsibility disappeared. By late afternoon, the first meeting had been postponed, then another. No announcements, no alarms, just hesitation spreading, desk to desk. I shut down my computer, picked up my bag, and walked out knowing the system was doing exactly what I had built it to do. Is a warning still a warning if the people who receive it don't bother to read it? I sent the email at 12:47. Short, documented, impossible to misunderstand. Before final termination processing, please confirm review of Section 9.4, Continuity Assurance, as referenced in the amended employment agreement. I CC'd legal compliance, and the CEO's son. No commentary, no emotion, just the clause number and the reason it mattered. At 1:06, legal replied, "Thank you. Grenier. All standard provisions have been reviewed and addressed." Standard. The word sat there like an insult. I waited 3 minutes, then called the number under the signature. The line rang twice. "Legal," a woman said, distracted. "This is Grain." I said, "I'm calling about Section 9.4. A pause. Keyboard clicks. "Yes. We saw your note. Did you read the clause?" I asked, "or the summary?" Another pause, sharper this time. "The summary is sufficient." "It isn't," I said. "That clause executes on governance change, not termination language. It's not discretionary." Her tone cooled. "The company has procedures. The clause overrides procedure," I said. "That's the point. I'll note your concern," she said. Already disengaging. "Please do more than note it," I said. The line went quiet. Then, "We're in back-to-back meetings," she said. "If there's an issue, leadership will raise it." The call ended. 5 minutes later, my phone rang again. "The CEO's son, Grain," he said. Brisk. "Legal said it's fine. They didn't read it." I said. "They reviewed it." He corrected. "There's a difference," I said. "And this difference matters." A beat. Then a laugh. "You're not here anymore. This isn't your call." "It will be," I said. "Just not today." He exhaled, impatient. "We're moving forward." "I know," I said. After I hung up, another email arrived, this one automated. "Your message has been logged." Logged. Not read, not challenged. Filed away like a receipt. I didn't send another message. I didn't escalate. I didn't argue. I closed my inbox and let the assumption stand. Because assumptions are fragile things. They feel solid right up until the moment they're tested. What if the most dangerous clauses are the ones that activate quietly? I read Section 9.4 again that evening. Not because I needed reassurance, but because habit is hard to break. I had helped draft the amendment 3 years earlier, sitting across from outside counsel while the private equity partners asked careful questions about continuity risk. "This isn't about protecting Grain," one of them had said at the time. "It's about protecting the firm if Grain disappears." The clause didn't threaten anyone. It didn't assign blame. It didn't mention lawsuits or damages. It was written in neutral language, the kind executives skim because it sounds boring. If a designated continuity role is altered without board approval and a defined transition period, the system shifts to protective mode. No intent required. No negotiation window. No emergency override. It didn't punish decisions. It responded to them. The next morning, my phone rang once more. Elaine again. She sounded tired now, not tense. "Legal wants to know if you're planning to contest the termination," she said. "I'm not," I said. "They're worried you might escalate." "I already escalated," I said, 3 days ago, in writing. "That's not what I meant," she said. "They think you might take action," I smiled, though she couldn't see it. "I already have." There was a pause. "You haven't filed anything." "I didn't need to," I said. "The clause doesn't require my participation." "So what happens now?" she asked. "Now," I said. "The system checks whether the change followed the rules it was built around, and if it didn't, then it protects itself." She was quiet for a moment. "Is there a way to stop it?" "Yes," I said. "Before it starts, and after." "After," I said. "No one stops it. Not me. Not legal. Not the board." She lowered her voice. "They thought it was just language. It is," I said, "language that executes." When the call ended, I did nothing else. I didn't call a lawyer. I didn't send another message. I didn't try to be helpful. I exited cleanly, exactly as the clause anticipated, and let the machinery they had ignored begin to move on its own. How long does it take before silence starts costing money? It started with a message from Victor Chen, one of the senior partners at a pension fund we'd worked with for years. He didn't email. He called. "Gran," he said, skipping pleasantries. "We're being told our infrastructure allocation is delayed." I kept my voice even. "Delayed how? No release date." He said. "No signer, no explanation." "Who did they say was accountable now?" I asked. A pause. Papers shifting. That's the problem, Victor said. They didn't say. An hour later, another call came in. This one from Reena Patel, head of operations on a joint venture. We're stuck, she said. Compliance won't clear the transfer. Why not? I asked. They say they're waiting for confirmation. From who? Silence. Then, quietly, from you. By mid-afternoon. The pattern was clear. Nothing was broken. No alerts, no failures. Just hesitation spreading from desk to desk. Every decision reached the same dead end. I didn't have to be there to hear the conversations. I knew how they sounded. We'll revisit this tomorrow. Let's get legal comfort first. Can we pause until governance is clarified at 4:10? Elaine called again. Her voice had changed. No urgency now, just strain. They're asking why nothing is moving, she said. Because no one wants to be responsible, I said. They're worried about exposure. They should be, I said. The board wants assurances, she said. Assurances come from continuity, I said, not titles. She lowered her voice. They didn't expect this kind of freeze. It's not a freeze, I said. It's caution, that's costing us, she said. Yes, I said, that's the point. After we hung up, my phone stayed quiet. No more calls, no more questions. The silence thickened, not empty but heavy, like a room where everyone was waiting for someone else to speak first. I set my phone down and watched the evening pass without interruption, knowing that somewhere downtown, meetings were ending without decisions, approvals were stalling without explanation, and money was sitting exactly where it was unable to move, without someone willing to own the consequences. How do you know when someone has stopped talking down to you and started asking for help? My phone rang just after 9 the next morning. The number was unfamiliar, but I recognized the cadence of the silence before he spoke. Grene, the CEO's son said. He didn't introduce himself this time. We may have moved too fast. I waited. We're seeing some resistance. He continued. Approvals that should be routine are getting stuck. They aren't stuck, I said. They're waiting. For what? He asked. Sharper now. For accountability, I said. The system won't proceed without it. A breath on the other end. Controlled. Measured. Legal is reviewing the clause you mentioned. I know, I said. How do you know? He asked. Because you're calling me, I said. He didn't deny it. If there's a way to clarify expectations, he said. We'd like to do that quickly. You're past clarification, I said. You're in execution. That's not helpful, he said. It's accurate, I said. You didn't ask what the clause did before. You're asking now because it already started doing it. He shifted tactics. We're not looking to escalate this. You already did, I said. When you changed governance without transition. Legal says intent matters, he said. Intent is irrelevant, I said. The clause doesn't measure motive, it measures structure. Another pause, longer. So what happens now, he asked. That depends on what decisions get made next, I said, such as, he pressed. Such as whether you keep trying to fix a system problem with optics, I said. Or whether you accept that some processes don't rewind. His voice tightened. We're trying to protect the company. Then stop improvising, I said. And stop assuming silence means nothing is happening. He exhaled slowly. If we had reviewed this earlier, you didn't, I said. And now you're late. The line went quiet. When he spoke again, the confidence was gone. We'll be in touch. I'm sure you will, I said. And ended the call. I set the phone down and didn't wait for the next ring, knowing that once the tone changes, the questions that follow are never the same as the ones that came before. What if the move meant to calm the crisis was the one that finished it? I heard about the board meeting before it ended. Elaine texted one-line emergency session. All members present. That alone told me how far things had slipped. Boards don't gather that fast unless something has already broken. An hour later, my phone rang. Unknown number again. They're looking for a reset, Elaine said when I answered. Her voice was careful, practiced. Confidence is shaking. Clients are asking questions the team can't answer. And the solution? I said. A breath. He's stepping down. I didn't ask who. I didn't need to. They think removing him will show accountability. She continued. Stability. A clean line forward. Is that what they called it? I asked. Yes, she said, stabilizing confidence. I closed my eyes, not in relief, but recognition. When, I said, Effective immediately, by midday. The internal memo leaked. By mid-afternoon, it was public. The language was polished, bloodless. A voluntary resignation in the best interest of the company. The markets liked it. For a few hours. Victor texted me from the pension fund. Looks like they finally took action. Rena followed. Press seems positive. I didn't respond. Elaine called again. Quieter now. If you have concerns, she said. This would be the time. I know, I said. Grain. She pressed. If there's something we should flag, you already flagged it. I said. 3 days ago, in writing. Silence stretched between us. Then, softer. Do you understand what this triggers? Yes, I said. I understood it the moment you said his name, and you're not going to say anything. There's nothing to say, I replied. The clause doesn't respond to intentions. It responds to changes. She swallowed. I could hear it. They think this buys time. It spends it, I said. When the call ended, I watched the news cycle shift from reassurance to speculation. The relief was real, but it was thin. I could feel the weight of what had just been set in motion, heavy and irreversible, moving forward without any need for my consent or intervention. Can a company lose $800 million without anyone stealing a cent? It took less than 12 hours. The first call came from Victor Chen, his voice stripped of formality. Our counsel says the resignation triggered a continuity breach, he said. We're exercising our withdrawal rights. I didn't interrupt. The language is explicit, he continued. Change in designated governance without approved transition. No discretion. By mid-morning, Rena Patel called from the joint venture. We're pulling exposure, she said. Not because we want to, but because the contract requires it. Understood, I said. At 10:27, legal finally reached out. Not the associate this time. The general counsel herself. Grene, she said too carefully. We are trying to assess the scope. You already know the scope, I said. You're counting it. There was a pause. Papers shuffled. The cross clauses are broader than anticipated. They were always broad, I said. That's what made them protective. By noon, the numbers stabilized long enough to be named. $800 million in value erased as partners exercised rights that had been dormant for years. Not penalties, not fines. Withdrawals, reallocations, repricing. At 1:45, the board convened again. I wasn't invited. I didn't need to be. The decision trail was clean. Emails logged. Approvals time-stamped. The resignation memo attached to the governance change that set everything in motion. At 3, the CEO called me directly. His voice was flat. We didn't understand the interaction. I explained it, I said. You chose speed. We're not assigning blame. He said, You don't have to, I replied. The documents already did. When the call ended, my phone stayed silent. No accusations, no demands. The system had executed exactly as written, and everyone involved could see who had approved what and when. By the time the markets closed, the loss was no longer theoretical. It was booked, disclosed, and irreversible, sitting squarely where decisions are supposed to land when assumptions replace verification. What do you say when the people who discarded you suddenly want you back? The call came the next morning, a number I recognized this time. Board office. Gren, Lucas Reed said, the lead independent director. His voice carried the careful calm of someone used to cleaning up after other people's decisions. We'd like to talk about resolution. I'm listening, I said. We believe your return could help stabilize confidence, he continued. There would be a new title, expanded authority, a compensation adjustment to reflect recent events. He named the figure. It was generous, more than I had ever asked for. I let him finish. This isn't about compensation, I said. And it isn't about authority. He hesitated. Then what is it about? Clarity, I said. And that already happened. We're prepared to issue a statement, he said. Reframe the narrative. Emphasize shared responsibility. There's no shared responsibility, I said. There's a record. Silence. Then, carefully, you understand the damage this has caused. I do, I said. I warned you. We didn't realize the extent. You didn't realize because you didn't look, I said. That's different. He tried another angle. The company needs experienced leadership right now. The company needed it last week, I said, when the decision was reversible. Another pause. The tone shifted. Less negotiation, more acceptance. The board will be assigning responsibility formally. I assumed you would, I said. The resignation letter makes the chain clear, he said. It names the decision. Then you know why I can't come back. I said, yes, he admitted, I do. We ended the call without anger, without apology. The offer stayed on the table in theory, then disappeared quietly the way it had arrived. That afternoon, the internal memo went out. It was brief, factual. The kind of document that never raises its voice but never lies. It named the unilateral decision. It named the failure to review. And it closed the loop they had left open when they thought experience was a line item they could remove. What changes when people finally understand what you protect 3 months later? I sat in a different boardroom, on the opposite side of a long table. No badge, no access card. Just my name printed on the agenda. The chair of the committee cleared his throat. Before we proceed, he said, we'd like your assessment of governance risk if we accelerate this transition. I didn't answer right away. I flipped one page, then another. If you move that fast, I said, you'll expose yourself for 6 months, maybe more. No one interrupted, no one checked a phone. A woman across from me, a managing partner I'd met only once before, nodded. And if we slow it down, then you control the damage, I said. And no one's name ends up in a disclosure. That was the difference. They weren't asking how impressive I was. They were asking what would break if they were careless. Later that week, the final report from my former company went public. It didn't mention me by name. It didn't need to. It identified the decision maker who bypassed legal review, approved the governance change, and initiated the resignation that triggered the losses. The CEO's son was no longer described as visionary or bold. He was described as unilateral. I heard from Elaine once more. Her message was short. They're using your case in internal training now, I wrote back. Then at least something stuck. I didn't disappear after that. I didn't retreat into silence or victory laps. I showed up where it mattered, when invited, and spoke plainly. The reputation followed me without effort. The loss followed him the same way. At the end of one meeting, the chair thanked me. We almost got this wrong, he said. You didn't, I replied. You asked before deciding. That night, I thought about the moment I was called younger and cheaper, and how small that room had felt. Not because I'd lost something, but because they had never understood what I was holding together. Experience is not a cost. It is a safeguard. When people reduce value to numbers on a page, they don't eliminate risk, they hide it until it becomes impossible to ignore. They no longer ask how much I cost. They ask what happens if they get it wrong.